There we go. Okay, so my name's Andrew Hogan. I'm from Figma, the aforementioned Figma that came up earlier. We are in the back of the room. And I'm here to talk to you about some research we've been doing about redesigning finance. What does it mean? How do you do it? What should you be thinking about? I'm going to share some of what we've been finding, and it's kind of a preview of some other work that we'll have coming out soon. The single biggest thing to think about here is that there's been a 35% growth among the size of design teams at financial services firms. This is a broad growth across all sorts of different areas. We've seen investment from a number of different companies. It's global. This is a huge thing. But there's a secret about this number. And I'm going to share it with you in just a little bit, but I have to tell you just a little bit more about why this is happening and where it might go next. So, what are the words, the trends, and the actions that these companies are undertaking? What is it that your peers, that you yourselves, I don't know where to stand. We'll try here. What are the things that are happening? Nope, that's worse. What are the things that are happening, and how should you be thinking about this? So some of the words, where do you see this coming up? You see this coming up in quotes like this from Walt Bettinger at Charles Schwab. This is a retail sort of wealth management quote, but still, expectations for clients are formed at Uber, DoorDash, Amazon. Everybody has some version of this quote. You've seen this sort of thing before. You also see that there's more investment and more intention on employee experience. We saw a whole bunch of demos earlier about the importance of people making better decisions, faster decisions, knowing more. You're also going to see more and more about this. So the belief that you can augment employees with AI, but it has to be designed in a human-centered way. If you just drop ChatGPT in front of people, they're probably not going to get a lot of value quickly, but there's definitely some things in here. The JP Morgan Chase people they like this. But it's being designed in a human-centered way. So those are some of the words. You've seen those from a number of different leaders across the industry, but what are the trends that are actually driving this? So let's just think about your own experience, the apps that you use every day. 2010, apps show up. It's kind of cool. We can do some things on our phone. We can look at our balances. Here's a look back at no mobile features made a biggest impact as quickly as mobile remote deposit capture. Do you remember when that happened? That was a big deal. Nobody cares about that now. And then 2023, this predictive and anticipatory stuff that's bringing things to you and forward and helping you to actually make better decisions. And this is something that people want to see. It's true within wealth management as well. So 2014, should you trade stocks on your iPhone? Should you become an iPhone stock trader? And then to 2023, of course you should. Of course you should do this all the time. You should trade options on your iPhone. Robinhood actually thinks about screenshots of their app as a KPI for success. And that tells you something about how far this has gone. This is the sort of thing that's filling in every part of our lives. There's more change coming. We've heard from executives that this has been the hardest last couple years of their careers, and it's probably going to get more challenging. You've got more new competition. You've got Gen Z's expansion and Gen Z's new expectations. You've got how do you bring together human and digital service across all of your different lines of businesses? How do you actually make these things work well together when they're completely different systems? And then you've got AI, data, personalization, and how do you integrate those things? I just want you to think about this chart and how fast this is happening. So these are mobile app users that are Gen Z. And of course, it's going to keep going up. It's only about half of them are using apps. But then you think about that at work too. They're not the same as everybody else. They've only been online. They've never not been online. All of their experiences have been formed through interactions with phones. I want you to think about increasing the value of data. It's not enough to just collect all this data. How do you actually make it useful for people? And many different banks and financial services firms are investing in teams that are actually making AI capabilities easier to use. McKinsey has some interesting data about a doubling of AI capabilities within the average organization that uses AI. And then just expectations and what people want to see has risen over the last few years. They're now more comfortable with remote financial advice, but they also are looking for a little bit more. Half of high net worth and affluent clients want to see better digital experiences from their wealth management firm. So what are the actions? I laid out a bunch of problems. I said things are going to change. I said it's going to be harder. I showed you a chart of going like this. What do you actually do differently? So the first thing is people and leadership. The second thing is design roles and disciplines, because not every designer is the same. Not every person who does design will fit in neatly into those boxes. So I brought up that 35% number here. This is actual data from companies that took a survey of ours about the size of their design team and how fast they've grown. From 800 to 1,000 designers, from 250 to 500, from 22, you see this massive increase across the board. It's true in the UK as well, 100 to 200, 300 to 500. You can't just grow this quickly without really some dramatic change happening within how these teams work. Enter chief design officers, SVPs of design, and we did some research and we talked to people and they would bring up, oh, we hired a chief design officer. It was a big statement. We were telling everybody how important this was. We actually did some research and saw that if you look at a sample of 40 banks, half have a chief design officer or an SVP of design. But it's not just those people. It's also design middle managers. It's also people who manage design systems. We heard about that earlier. It's also people who manage design ops and actually push through processes and make things happen. It's accessibility experts, and it's content designers. Because what these teams are now finding is that you can't just have one person who does all the design. You've got to think about copy. You've got to think about accessibility, and you've got to think about how all these things are going to work together. And you might even, as Chase has done, actually hire for a VP of data lifecycle, let me make sure I get this right, data lifecycle design team. Rethink and reinterpret how billions of data points affect billions of dollars. They are hiring someone to work on ML and AI design because of how important they believe this to be. And then, of course, you end up with, well, you've got to actually change the systems that employees use. So here's one example, working through 5 different systems. I think there are probably people in here who would say there's maybe more than 5. And then they were able to integrate those things together and actually reduce time to serve that customer by 75%, which the customer's happy about, and of course the bank is happy about. But now it's time for the secret. It's time for the thing that, well, you know, I put up the 35% number, I said this is what they've done, and the secret is that, well, sometimes you hire a bunch of designers really fast, and, well, maybe it's not actually as effective as you want it to be. It may not be enough to just hire a bunch of designers and throw them at the problem. In some examples, we've actually heard of it making it worse. So they have no accountability to the business, they don't understand the technology, they don't ask enough questions, and, well, that's not great. And what it turns out is that you actually have to increase the investment in people who will work with designers, product owners who care about the experience, developers who care about the experience, other people involved in decision making who will make sure that the designs actually come out, that they work well, that it all functions. And this is the big sort of lesson of the last few years. Hiring, growing your design team by 35% is great. You probably actually should hire even more of them, but it's not enough. You've got to actually bring more people together. It's the whole team's responsibility, and there has to be a change in the way that work happens. So one of the big ways that that's happened is through design systems. So when we talk to teams who use design systems, 69% of them say that they're using them more than they did 2 years ago. I don't know what the 31% are doing. I'm a little worried about them, but it's a big number. And the fundamental goal here is to reduce the time so that you actually get to business value faster. We heard panelists talking about that before. I want to point out one thing on here. So this is a quote from Revolut, which is fintech in the UK. The time it takes to go from design to code is 2 to 3 weeks, and that's crazy. That's unbelievably fast. And that's what they're worried about. you could actually see a presentation by them on how they do this, how to make it faster. We've also seen the gathering of unexpected allies, so legal, customer service, all sorts of different groups working with design hand in hand to try to make things happen faster and more effectively. And really, this has been a broad change. You have more people involved in design, 5, 10, 15 people in all sorts of projects. You have leadership, executives at these organizations that are jumping into files, leaving comments in prototypes, interacting with prototypes, because they don't have to download something. They just get in there and start doing things and seeing it and experience it. And the place that leaves us is that this realization of what people are actually trying to accomplish in the retail space or in the lending space is to buy a home. They don't really want a mortgage, they want to buy a home. They don't really want to, make a trade, they want to accomplish some sort of business goal or some other kind of thing. And then it also leaves you at this point of, this stuff is all really important. And you've got to actually really think about what the potential impact is, because it could ruin somebody's life, it could ruin somebody's job. We've all been involved in some sort of situation where really bad design actually makes things miserable at work. It creates these tense situations or makes it so that things don't work well. So this importance ends up driving this desire to redesign each aspect of finance and each aspect of financial services. The Figma platform helps bring teams together. It's a collaborative design tool. Helps you brainstorm, design, prototype. It's super easy to drop into and use. It's just a URL to get into, nothing to download. Pretty cool. And if you want to know more about things like this, we're having our big conference Config in June, live stream, or you can come see us in San Francisco. We'd love to have you there. Thank you.